Picture this. You're walking through a well-lit hallway indoors and the lights flicker, signaling that a deadly entity is nearby. You dive into the next room, trying to hide away from what's trying to get you. Heart pounding, only to suddenly vanish. Not into another room, not into darkness, but into nothingness. A place where time, space, and reality seem to be forgotten, and a place that players have come to fearfully call the vacuum. But what even is the vacuum, and how does it play a part in the hotel at all? Is it just a quirky little gameplay mechanic, or is it hiding a more deeper, sinister purpose? And could it be the key to understanding the deeper components of the numerous mysteries of the hotel, like the Celestials, or even where the game takes place? In this video, we're going to be diving headfirst into the lore, theories, and secrets behind the vacuum, from its possible connection to other monsters, and to why it exists in the first place. We're leaving no door unopened, so grab the crucifix you have in your Rift, and prepare for the unknown. So to start off, we'll do a little recap of where it comes from. The back door was first introduced back when Doors was included in the Hunt event on March 15th for the 2024 Roblox event, and to access the backdoor entrance, players would need to exit the lobby through the front doors, turn right, and continue forward until they find a gap in the gate. But if you haven't entered the rooms before, Curious Light will block the opening, displaying a message indicating that the detour achievement earned by entering the rooms for the first time is required to pass. And beyond that gate, there's a door functioning as an elevator capable of holding up to 4 players. The origin of the back door is pretty unknown, with the only thing we know about it being that it's forgotten, with this fact being discovered after falling into the vacuum and dying. After dying to the vacuum, Curious Light says, "Oh, looks like there wasn't anything behind that door. Sorry." And then proceeds to say, "The back door is somewhat forgotten too. Some parts seem to be missing entirely." Now this is possibly the most confusing and obscure sentence because we don't know how something is forgotten, because you would think if something is forgotten, it would be completely vacant, but there are still monsters on the subfloor, and there's even a whole architect occupying it too, so what about it is forgotten? It seems that when an area of the hotel reaches this forgotten state, it then becomes separate of whatever space it was originally connected to, which that in itself sounds confusing, because when something is forgotten, where does it even go? Does it just snap out of existence, or does it go somewhere else? I'm gonna go on a side tangent here, but I promise it'll bolster the point I'm trying to make. If we go off of the one word that might be telling us where the entire game takes place, it takes place in Limbo, which, if you don't know, can be found on the podium in front of the guiding light statue in the courtyard. But if you look at some of the environments the game gives us, the description of Limbo lines up with what we're looking at. Limbo is usually depicted as lonely, eerie, timeless, and most importantly, a transitional in-between state, neither heaven nor hell, where we're stuck in some infinite loop of suffering because we have quote-unquote unfinished business. Now, if we look at this common depiction and compare it with other media, that description of Limbo lines up. For instance, Silent Hill portrays Limbo in a psychological and supernatural way, making it one of the most iconic depictions of an in-between state in horror games. Instead of a traditional waiting room for souls, Silent Hill turns the concept of Limbo into a twisted personal nightmare where people are trapped by guilt, trauma, and other unresolved emotions. It serves as a custom-built Limbo uniquely tailored to each individual's personal torment. In layman's terms, the area around you and what you explore is a composite of your memory, very much like dreams. Silent Hill is a purgatorial realm, drawing in those burdened by deep psychological wounds or unatoned sins. Now, let's say hypothetically that this portrayal of Limbo is the same indoors, where our environment is a composite or made up of our character's memory, if we are a main character of some sort. That could mean that our character is way more closely connected to the backdoor, hotel, and mines than we thought, if it all takes place in Limbo. And especially with the infirmary, it could indicate that our character died in a hospital bed of some disease, or maybe an injury. For instance, we may have been in the mines in our actual life, and we suffered an injury that was so bad that we had to go to an infirmary in which we died in the bed, which is why the infirmary exists in the hotel, prompting the mines to exist in the game in the first place, because it's a key point of trauma conjuring up the mines in our Limbo. It also might explain why we see so many of these love letter looking things, and that could be because while we were in the bed, ill, before we passed into Limbo, our main character would write letters to their loved ones. I mean, to me, it only makes sense. You're in bed, you're hurt, and you know that you might not make it through. So you want to write love letters to the ones that need it the most, to ensure that you can just at least say goodbye. And again, these love letters are something that you see during your entire exploration of the hotel. It makes no sense why a love letter would be in so many random drawers over and over again. And to me, that strengthens the theory that the entire game takes place in Limbo, made up of our memories. The back door fulfills its forgotten description partially, with tons of boxes in this attic-looking environment as if it's all being moved out of. The Hunt update introduced the vacuum with the back door, but the recent content update, that's what it was literally called, actually expanded on the idea of the vacuum even further by adding a lot more rooms where the vacuum is visible, even including a room where the entire upper half of the room is destroyed with the vacuum being visible on the outside. I did a couple runs to the back door and every instance of it is blocked off somehow, and this is most likely Curious Light blocking it off because it knows that it is dangerous. Now, to put this in the least complex way possible, I think that the void is the edge of Limbo because it is the edge of our memory. There's nothing more to remember, so there's nothing left to fill in the spaces. And that's what I think the vacuum/void is. It's the edge of our memory. And that might also explain why the back door is forgotten. It's because we forgot it, or at least not entirely. The memory for what the back door is hazy or blurry, which is why it's so broken. We see moving boxes everywhere because the back door might symbolize a large part of our character's life that they've moved on from. If we're going off the theory that the entire game is made up of our memory before we pass into Limbo. This theory also explains the bizarre fact that despite there being these empty spaces of literal nothingness, there can also be areas that are outside, with rain, trees, and the sky, with oceans accompanying the scenery. In my eyes, there's no other way to explain those two things coexisting because I don't see anything else that can replicate this besides dream-like areas. Dreams make no sense because they're made up of random memories, so it only makes sense that the game is not a dream but takes place in a limbo that is made up of memories, which is why things seem to not make sense because they don't and it's not supposed to. Now, I'm gonna throw something out there that is pure conjecture, but I'm led to believe that the vacuum sucks you out into the void. They are directly related to each other, and I have reason to believe this because of how the void functions in the hotel. When you're playing multiplayer and one person is left too far behind for too long, you get voided. And the void pulls you to where the rest of the group is, making it somewhat sentient, I guess. But notice how the void only does this when you've become so far from the group that they might have just forgotten about you. You see where I'm going with this? When a room in the hotel is vacant for too long, it just breaks because of our own character forgetting about it. Because remember, we're going with the theory that the game's environment is built off the character's memory. So it only makes sense that an area of the game would become fragmented and broken because of our character failing to remember the area. Now, the reason why I think that the vacuum is connected to the void is because, for one, the void actively sucks out oxygen from the room because there is no oxygen in the void, and this fact can be confirmed by one of Curious Light's death messages. The vacuum has no oxygen, and I'm told you need oxygen to survive. Basically, what I'm saying is the void isn't the vacuum is the door that leads out into the void. So the vacuum and the void can kind of be used interchangeably, but they are still pretty much the same thing. But do you want to know something else? The most recent entity added into the game, Sally, could be directly related to the void or possibly born from it. When Sally successfully attacks you and jump scares you, she drains all your oxygen down to nearly zero. And the void doesn't have any oxygen. And I feel like she does this because she was born from the void. And because of that, she doesn't need oxygen, nor does she have any, and as a way of attacking you, it somehow absorbs your oxygen to hinder you further. Also, she absorbs all light, which is why she's completely pitch black apart from her face. Light cannot be bounced off of her, which might be another trait from being born from the void. And remember, I said that the void could possibly be the edge of our memory. So if Sally is born from the void, could Sally be a possible forgotten child that we may have had in our actual life before we passed into Limbo? I know that the three lights in the game are called architects, but we still don't know what they are the architects of. The obvious answer is the hotel, but again, that's still not confirmed. So it's still very well possible that the entire game is still built on the character's memory. But because all of this is very supernatural, we can still assume that the three lights are more or less extraneous variables, and for whatever reason are choosing to interact with our Limbo. But I feel like that doesn't tie in correctly with my theory, so since the Limbo is essentially our mind, what are the architects? My idea is that they are physical manifestations of our mind. Essentially, guiding light is the manifestation of our sound mind. It's the manifestation of our rational or critical thinking, which is why it guides us through Limbo. Curious light is the manifestation of our curious mind, and that's about as simple as it sounds. It's our curiosity being manifested as a physical being in Limbo. And the red light, or mischievous light, is a manifestation of our intrusive mind. It brings things into our Limbo that threaten us and that may display our deepest fears and what our character might regret the most. So if the vacuum or void and even the entire game are all pieces of a shattered memory, then maybe us ourselves are the ones holding the key to what really happened. The hotel, the mines, architects, everything might just be fragments of a life long forgotten, struggling to stay intact within the limbo of our own mind. But that raises the biggest question of all. Who are we? Are we just another soul trapped in this endless cycle, or is there something or someone out there that doesn't want us to remember? Whatever the truth is, one thing is clear. Doors is hiding something much deeper than we ever expected, and as updates keep coming, we might just be getting closer to unlocking the biggest mystery of them all. And just because this is the most far-fetched theory I think anyone has ever come up with, please do let me know in the comments what you guys think. Am I geeked out or am I locked in? I don't know. But if you did enjoy this deep dive, make sure to like and subscribe for more Doors theories, secrets, and lore breakdowns, and probably much more. And until next time, stay curious, and I will catch y'all whenever I decide to upload again.